Welcome to the training videos for the Pi Kappa Delta National Tournament. Again, we thank you for your willingness to judge at our event, and we hope these training videos will help you understand kind of the basics of judging and what will be expected of you at the tournament. So this first video will focus on the basics of judging and the tournament logistics. Subsequent videos will talk about the specifics of each event, both public speaking and debate, and give you some suggestions on how to fill out ballots. So this video we'll cover judging basics. We will talk about the tournament logistics, finding your round, determining the speaker order in speech events, the timing of the rounds, and returning your ballots. And those are all the kind of basic elements that you'll need to be aware of as a judge for this tournament. First though, you probably need to know something about where you need to park. You should have received this information via email from me. If not, of course, email back. The parking locations will be some of the E-lots next to the basketball stadium and behind the Alumni Center. Parking permits will be required for the parking lots on Thursday and Friday. Those can be picked up at the registration table in Patterson Office Tower. No permits are required for Saturday and Sunday, so it's the same lots, but you don't need to worry about placing a permit for those second 2 days. And of course, if you're only judging on Friday and Saturday, you only need one permit. If you're only coming in on Sunday, you wouldn't need a permit at all. That's just a heads up for those of you who are judging on Thursday and Friday. The tournament headquarters is on the first floor of Patterson Office Tower. Once you enter the tower, you'll see that there are tables along the south side doors. There are going to be tables on the left and the right side as you enter the building for ballot pickup and ballot drop-off. Those will also be the registration tables. That's where you will check in before your rounds and where you will pick up your ballots. And you'll see signs that direct you where you need to go for those different steps of the process. There'll be signs that show you where ballot check-in is and where ballot drop-off is at. And this is also where you'll register, and that's where what we'll talk about next. So you'll want to arrive for registration about a half an hour before your first round of the day. You'll be receiving individualized schedules and an email throughout the rest of the day as we go through and send those to each judge. But you'll want to go to the registration table and pick up your first ballots and check in about a half an hour before your first round. You will want to make sure that you see Zach Chanel. He'll be at one of the tables on Thursday. I think he'll be wearing UK blue. If not, he will make sure to point him out, and all the people at the tables will know who you need to check in with, so you don't need to worry about that. He will have a packet for you that first day for you to judge. In that folder will be a copy of your judging schedule, a copy of judging suggestions, a judging packet, which also should be included in the email sent out later. As well as the form that you'll need to get filled out to get paid. And all those will be in a nice folder. You can just check in and pick that up with him. Zach will also be the one responding to any questions that you have via text or the GroupMe app, so you'll get to know him pretty well throughout the event. And of course, if you have any questions when you get to the tournament, that will be a great time to ask them when you check in at registration. So once you've received your ballot pack for that first round and you've checked in with Zach, your ballot pack will have listed on the top of it your students who are in your round and where your round will take place. And so that will be included on your ballot packet. Your folder of materials will include a tournament booklet that has a schedule for the tournament and a campus map in it. So it should be really easy to find what your building is and where your room is at. The big thing is don't worry. If you need help, just ask. There are plenty of UK folks around the tournament who'll be happy to give you directions to where you're going. Additionally, feel free to ask the other students and judges and competitors that are at the tournament. Pi Kappa Delta is a really open, warm, welcome organization, and they're more than happy to help you find the round that you're going to. In fact, you may just be lucky enough to stumble on someone going to the same place and you can walk together. But it should be relatively easy to find your room. If you have questions, of course, just ask. Once you're in your room, there are a couple things to keep in mind. Of course, first, before entering your room, make sure that the previous round is finished. It should be done by the time you get there, but for some reason a round is running late or a student or a judge is somewhat behind, you may have to wait just a few minutes before going in. But you'll want to make sure to check that before you open the door and just step in case someone is speaking. Once you're in your room though, feel free to begin filling out your ballots. And in another video coming up, There will be a discussion of how to fill out your ballots and what information is to be included, but there's some basic information such as your name, your affiliation, which in this case you can just write hired as a hired judge for us, or you can write, for example, if you're with Toastmasters, feel free to write Toastmasters. You can write whatever affiliation you'd like there, but hired is totally fine if that's what you're comfortable with. And once you've filled up your ballots, you'll want to wait until the scheduled time to begin the round. So if you get done with that just a little bit early, you'll want to wait to that exact time because students will be coming and going and signing into your round and getting ready for the competition. So you want to wait to the beginning of your time to start. But once you've got your ballots filled out and that time has arrived, you can go ahead and begin filling out your ballots and starting the round. One other thing to keep in mind, of course, is that you'll want to keep your cell phone off during the rounds, or at least have it silenced so that you don't interrupt the students' speeches, and you'll want to be a respectful listener while you're filling out your ballots. Pretty much anything that you can think of that would be professional, you'd be wanting to do that. And as far as tournament attire, don't feel as though you have to dress up in a full suit. So long as it's business casual or is professional and comfortable, that's all you need to worry about there. Now with speech events, there is something to consider, and that's the speaking order for the students in the round. Your list on your ballots will have 6 students listed, perhaps 5 if you've got one of the smaller rounds, but it will have the students listed on the front of your ballot. That's the order that they've randomly been assigned by our tournament software. They may not speak in that order, and there are a couple of reasons why that is the case. Students are allowed to enter 2 events per each round. So they may have another speech that they're doing besides the one that they're doing for you as a judge. So to facilitate that process, they will put some sort of indication on the board. So that list should match the entry list on your ballots. That's an important point. If a student signs in on your board, it isn't on your ballots, you will want to check with them to make sure they're in the right place. And if someone isn't signed in, they may just be running a little bit late, but you'll have their name at least on your list on the front ballots. Now, as mentioned before, the students will indicate if they're cross-entered in another event. So when they sign in the board, they'll put their name and their student and their speaker code on the board, and that'll let you know that they're there and that they're ready for the round. But they may put some sort of indication next to their name. They may put DE, they may put DE-EXT, or they may put DE-debate. All of those have different meanings. So DE means that that student has another event that they're doing in that flight. If the DE is not crossed out, that means the speaker isn't in your room and they're at their other event, and so that means they'll be coming to your round a bit later. If they're in your round, so if their name is marked DE but not crossed off and they are there, that means that they're doing their event for you first and then going to their other speaking round. As a judge, you'll want to let anyone who's double entered, or DE, go before anyone who's not. That way they have a chance to get to their other round. And so that's why we have them sign in with these additional bits of information next to their name to keep the tournament running on time. So if they have DE, you'll want to let them go first. If they have DE-EXT, that's a specific code for extemporaneous speaking. And the only reason why we put an extra designation there is so that you as the judge know that they'll be coming to your round second. People who are in extemporaneous speaking always go to that event first because there's a preparation time before the round. So that's why we put that indication. They may be coming in later than some of the other students. So if it says DE-EXT and you're not judging extemp, you'll know that those students are coming a little bit later. The final designation is DE-debate. This will only happen if you've got a debate round immediately after the public speaking round that you're judging. So if you're judging the third round of Flight B event on Friday, for example, you might have students who have one debate round directly afterward. To make sure that that debate round happens on time, those students are being told to sign in as DE debate, and then as soon as they're done with their event, they should be excused to go to their debate round. So it's exactly like DE, but you'll want to let them go first. So anyone who signed in DE debate should go before someone who is signed in as DE. Now to make this a little bit more clear, let's just walk through an example. So say, for example, you're judging persuasive speaking, and these 6 speakers sign in on the board. So you'll see you've got student codes for each of the students, or speaker codes. You'll also have their names, and then a few of them have some extra information next to the names. So in this case, our second speaker, Jason Stevenson, has DE-EXT behind his name. Our fourth speaker, Gina Phillips, has DE, and our sixth speaker, Grant Smith has DE debate. So once we start the round, assuming we filled out our ballots, it's the beginning of the round, so we can begin our speeches, we would let the speakers go in order. But in this case, we know that Jason Stevenson is probably going to be late, so he can. So DE extent means that we're not going to worry about waiting for him to start the round. We can just go ahead and get started. He'll be coming in later. Gina Phillips, as long as that DE isn't crossed off, that means that she's in the round, and so she's going to speak here first and then go somewhere else. If it isn't crossed off and she's not there, it means that she's in the other event, and so when she comes in, she'll cross that off to let you know that she's here. And then Grant Smith is DE debate, which means that he's here in the room, he's going to do his event, and then he'll need to be excused to go do his debate round. So assuming that everyone but Jason is here, the speaking order for this round would be first Grant Smith would go because he's DE debate, so he needs to get to his debate round. Then Gina Phillips would go next, she has another speaking event to get to, so she would go next as the DE student. Then we would just start at the top and go down all the single entered students. So we'd start with Mary Jean Patterson, then Abel Gonzalez, then Elisa Reynolds. And then when Jason Stevenson gets to the round, he would go last as he came in from another event. So it's just these codes along the side shouldn't be too overwhelming. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and ask the students. They're more than happy to let you know if they need to go somewhere else or if they're there. And so at the beginning of the round, you can ask to see who's there, quick take attendance, and then determine your speaking order based off of that additional information that they give you. Now, a couple things to keep in mind with the timing of the rounds. First is to make sure that you time each public speaking event. You'll want to record this time on the ballot, and that's just to let the students know how they're doing time-wise. Sometimes when students get in the round, they'll get a little nervous, they'll speak a little bit faster, and they'll want to know that as something that they can correct for future speeches. They also might go over time, in which case they should be penalized on the ballot, usually by dropping them to the lowest rank, or if you feel like it's just a few seconds, you can drop them just one rank, but you'll want to indicate that on the ballot. And I'll go ahead and explain all of that in the video that talks about filling out your ballots. But you will want to write this time down. In debate events, you'll want to make sure that each speech is timed, but you only need to consider the speaking time if the student went over or under by an extreme amount. So there, the time is really just to ensure fairness, that each side gets the same amount of time to speak, and those times will be indicated on the ballots. But there, you're just making sure that there's a level of fairness for each competitor. Finally, after the round, and as I mentioned before, there'll be another video talking about ballot comments, so we'll leave that for another video, and there'll be other videos talking about the specifics of each event category, and so you can watch those videos to learn more about each of those events. But after you've finished filling out your ballots, and you can double check your time that the round is supposed to be over in your tournament booklet, which will have the full schedule. You'll want to make sure that your ballots are completely filled out by that time and that you're on your way back to the ballot table by the time that round is supposed to be over. Usually a public speaking round lasts 75 minutes. You'll have 6 speakers. Each speech is about 10 minutes. So you'll have about 15 minutes of additional time to fill out the last bit of your ballots, to assign your scores and start heading back to the ballot table. So once you get to that end of the round and all of your speakers have gone, you'll want to head back to the ballot table. And then if you've got another round, you'll pick up your ballots and do it all over again. So this video described the basics of judging at the Pi Kappa Delta National Tournament. We covered things like tournament logistics and parking information, how you find your round, how you determine the speaking order in public speaking events, the timing of the rounds, and where to return your ballots and how to go about that process. So if you have any questions, of course, you can text them or send a message via the GroupMe app to Zach Chanel, and he will be more than happy to answer those questions for you. And then you'll want to make sure at the end of the round to bring your ballots back to Patterson Office Tower. If you have questions, of course, let us know, and feel free to watch the subsequent videos that talk about filling out your ballots in the different event formats. Thanks again for judging.